All right, let's dive into something pretty amazing. We're talking about communication before birth, inside mom's belly.
Yeah. It's a world we don't often think about, you know. But there's so much going on in there.
You know what I mean? It might seem like a one-way street, like we're the ones doing all the talking.
Bro.
But get this, babies are hearing and reacting way earlier than you might think.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got a whole bunch of sources here, medical journals, parenting guides, even advice for singers.
Yeah. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll be like, whoa, I had no idea.
Right. You'll be armed with all the fascinating, insider knowledge about this incredible connection.
You'll start noticing things, too. Little kicks, responses, all sorts of stuff. Once you realize just how much your little one is actually picking up on.
I'm already getting chills. So to kick things off, let's map it out. Expert speaker. How does a baby's hearing develop?
Okay, picture this. It's like a symphony, right? It happens in stages. So first, at 18 weeks, the inner ear structures are forming. Like literally, they're building their own little concert hall.
Wow. A tiny concert hall.
Right. It's wild. Then, around 24, 25 weeks, they start reacting to sound, but it's still pretty muffled. Imagine listening through a pillow.
Muffled booms and whooshing sounds all around?
Yeah, something like that. Then things get clearer by 28 weeks. Their sensitivity just, explodes. Now they can distinguish tones and pitches. Maybe that Mozart thing isn't so crazy after all.
So there's some truth to that. I mean, it's not going to make them a genius.
Right. Well, not exactly. But creating a stimulating environment is always good.
Right.
And from 30 weeks on, voices become super distinct, especially moms.
Ah, so that's why newborns just, melt when they hear their mom's voice. But wait, there's got to be more to it than just a nice, cozy feeling, right?
Oh, definitely. It's huge EE. It's not just sentimentality or whatever. This early connection, it's like the bedrock for language, for bonding, how they learn to, calm themselves down later on. It's basically wiring their brain for the world.
I never realized how much was going on in there. I thought most of that happened after birth. I'm starting to think this is a lot more than just cute little gurgling sounds. Speaking of, sometimes we get things wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some myths floating around, like that whole Mozart thing. Can playing classical music really turn my baby into a genius?
Well, I haven't seen any babies conducting orchestras from the womb, but stimulating their environment, good.
Right.
The real benefit is more about, the soothing effect. Creating a sense of well-being. That's super crucial for development.
So it's more about the vibe than the actual tunes. Myth busted. What about loud noises? Do they harm a baby's hearing? I know so many moms who are worried about that.
Yeah, it's a common concern, but think of it this way. The amniotic fluid, it's like a built-in sound buffer. It muffles everyday sounds.
Oh, so it's like their own little soundproof studio.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
So the occasional loud noise, not a big deal. It's more about, prolonged exposure. That's what we want to avoid.
Makes sense. I was starting to think I'd need noise-canceling headphones just to walk down the street. But, okay, what about that idea that babies don't really respond to voices until they're born? That one always seemed weird to me.
Yeah, it's not really accurate, is it? As we've seen, those little ears, they're tuned in from, the second trimester.
I think they're listening.
They might not understand the words, but they're getting the tones, the rhythms, all those emotional cues. And those are super important, especially for mom.
Like they're learning the language of emotions, which is pretty important. Way more important than knowing their ABCs at this point.
Yeah.
And speaking of mom's voice, it's almost like a direct line to the baby's emotions, right? Like a superpower.
It really is. They've done studies and they've found that babies' heart rates, even their movements, they change in response to their mom's voice. It's a real physical connection. It starts way before birth. And that's something even the guide for singers talked about, even with, all the hormonal changes that can affect a mom's voice during pregnancy. That connection is still there.
So even if your voice is going through some changes, that connection is still working its magic. But I've got to know, why is all of this so important? Why is this early voice recognition such a big deal?
Well, if you think about it, this is the foundation for so much. It shapes their language, how they bond, how they learn to, soothe themselves. It's amazing.
Wow. It's like every lullaby, every conversation is already shaping their world. So it's not just about talking to them. It's about, being intentional. Creating a good soundscape, a positive, loving environment.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really exciting. It's not just talking. It's a whole world of sensory experiences. Think lullabies, your favorite songs, even humming along to the radio.
They're soaking it all in. I love that. I bet they even start to, remember those melodies? I read about a baby who recognized a song from the womb after they were born.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's wild how much they're taking in. And it's not just music. Reading aloud is great, too, even though obviously they can't, follow the story yet.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. What's the point if they don't understand the words?
It's about the rhythm, the sound patterns. It's exposing them to, the cadence of language. That's the foundation for their own communication skills later on.
It's like they're getting a feel for how language works, even if they don't know the meaning yet.
Exactly. And don't forget about getting the whole family involved.
Oh, yeah. Dads, siblings, grandparents, everyone.
It's such a great way to strengthen those bonds right from the start. Imagine Dad talking about his hobbies, or a sibling singing a silly song.
I love that. It creates such a rich soundscape for the baby. And speaking of dads, I heard they might have a bit of an advantage in this whole voice recognition thing. Something about babies being more attuned to lower-pitched voices.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any truth to that?
There is. Studies have shown that babies might be a little more responsive to lower pitches, which, makes sense when you think about Dad's voice. And it's not just about the baby recognizing Dad either. It helps Dad feel more involved and connected, too. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
I remember reading in one of our sources, I think it was the Apta Club one, about dads talking to their bumps about their hobbies.
Oh, it's like babies getting a preview of Dad's personality.
Exactly. They're already getting to know him. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things that apply to any expectant parent, but we did find some interesting research specifically for singers.
Right. Singers who are pregnant have unique things to think about, right?
Exactly. We found a source that addressed a lot of common concerns that singers might have. Things like breathing changes, fatigue, worries about noise exposure.
It must be so different trying to sing while pregnant.
It is. There are a lot of new things to consider, but luckily this source had a bunch of practical tips, like staying hydrated is super important, especially to combat that dryness a lot of singers experience during pregnancy.
Right, because of the hormones, right?
Yep. And when it comes to actually performing, safety is key. The source recommended things like avoiding heavy lifting, being mindful of balance on stage.
I bet that's tough.
Yeah.
And then there's the noise level issue, too.
Exactly. Communication with your bandmates is key. Taking breaks, getting fresh air, all super important.
It sounds like with the right precautions, singing can be done safely during pregnancy.
Absolutely. It's all about being informed, listening to your body, and adapting as needed, which honestly is good advice for anything during pregnancy, not just singing.
So true. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's amazing to think that we can connect with our babies even before they're born. There's a whole secret language going on.
It really is remarkable. What stands out to you the most? What do you think is the most important thing for our listeners to remember?
That's a good question.
Take your time.
I think, honestly, what's blowing my mind is just how much power we have as parents to shape our baby's world, like even before they're born.
Right.
It's not about being perfect. It's about making those connections through sound, touch, intention. Every lullaby, every conversation, it's all a gift.
Beautifully said. And now that you know just how much those little ears are taking in, what kind of prenatal playlist will you create for them? What memories do you want to weave in to those earliest experiences?
Whoa. That's a powerful thought, and a perfect way to wrap up our deep dive into communication during pregnancy.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? Like all this is happening before they even take their first breath.
It really shows you just how much potential there is in those early months. It's like a whole new world of connection opens up.
And we get to be a part of it. It makes you realize that it's not just about, physically growing a baby. It's about nurturing a relationship.
Yeah.
From day one.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so powerful. We can literally shape their world even before they're born.
It's not about being perfect, right?
No, not at all.
It's about letting them know they're loved, that they're already part of the family. Whether we're reading to them, singing, just chatting with our bump, it all makes a difference.
Every little interaction adds up. And I bet our listeners are already thinking of all sorts of creative ways to connect with their little ones.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We've given them a lot to think about. I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah. We've only scratched the surface of what's possible when it comes to, communicating with your baby during pregnancy. Who knows what we'll discover in the future?
I know. It's exciting to think about. It just shows us that every pregnancy is a journey full of discoveries for both the parents and the baby.
Absolutely. A journey that starts long before the birth announcement.
Well said. Well, Expert speaker, thanks for diving into all of this with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. And to all our listeners out there, as you continue on this amazing adventure, remember to just enjoy it. Cherish those moments. Embrace every wonder that comes with bringing a new life into the world.
And keep those conversations going. Let those little ears tune in to all the love that surrounds them. That's it for our deep dive today, folks. Until next time.